Hello everyone, welcome to Reedsy Live, the ongoing series of webinars where we show people how to write and publish better books. My name is Martin from the team at Reedsy. Very glad you can join us here today or in the future. Today we have a very special Valentine's adjacent edition of Reedsy Live. It's all about plotting your romance novel. And as I mentioned before, if you were here for the pre-show, this is going to be a bit of an interactive one where we're going to invite you cordially, nay, we're going to demand, no, too harsh, request, suggest that you take part with a pen and paper or with a new notes screen. There'll be an opportunity to come with us through some exercises as you learn how to plot your romance novel and perhaps join the upper echelons of some of the most successful authors working today. So, without any further ado, I would love to introduce my guest, who is an author, editor, and teacher. Her work has appeared in dozens of literary magazines, including Plowshares, North American Review, Nimrod, and Puerto del Sol. Her latest romance novel is Her Night at the Museum. Please welcome Bryn Donovan. Bryn, how you doing?
Hello, thank you everybody for being here. This is absolutely fantastic. Martin, thank you for setting this up. So much
Yeah.
fun. As Martin said, this really is a workshop where you're going to do some quiet writing, which is a little bit different. A lot of times with workshops, you just kind of listen to someone else talk on and on. But I have taught this workshop a few times, and people have told me that they've hit little breakthroughs in the story that they're working on. And so I think there's really something to be said to in this sort of different environment. Sometimes it's easier to focus and sort of do some different thinking about a story that you're working on. So, as Martin said, I am a romance author. I'm also a book editor. For some years, I worked in publishing as a book editor, mostly on romance. Now I left publishing to focus a little more on my writing, and I am a freelance book editor too, and about 80% of what I do is still romance. So I wanted to teach this workshop because for me, plotting came really hard. It took me a long time to understand how to plot. Once I got comfortable with it, I really enjoyed it. I've developed the storylines for a couple of Hallmark Channel movies. I enjoy coming up with the plot and planning it out in advance, but it wasn't always that way. My background was in poetry, and it was just really difficult for me to think that way. And so this is, I mean, hopefully a good workshop for anyone who wants to do some focused thinking about their romance story or come up with a new one. But I think it's especially good for anyone who struggles with plotting or feels like they don't know what they're doing there. I'm going to take a little bit different of approach. When I worked in publishing and I read lots and lots of submissions every month, I started looking for four things in a submission, in a query letter, and a synopsis, because I realized that if a plot had these four things, it was going to be a pretty solid plot. Okay, and so we're going to start from there. If you have those nailed down, that will inform what scenes you come up with and will help you a whole lot when it comes to plotting. All right. So first we're going to talk, yes, I'll go ahead and talk through that slide though. So first we're going to talk about defining our characters. Just think a little bit about them. And then I'm going to talk through these four questions that I think you have to have good answers to, or else you're going to struggle. And then I'm going to talk about brainstorming key scenes, and that's going to be more like homework for y'all guys. So let's go ahead and get started. All right. So with characters, one thing I want to say before we do a little work on them is that if you have great characters, and this is especially true in romance, but I think it's true in every genre, if you have fantastic characters, readers will overlook all kinds of other things. They will overlook plot holes. They will overlook other weaknesses in pacing. If they love the characters, that is so powerful. I don't know if any of you, if you've ever watched a TV show that you really loved, and then in later seasons, the writing falls off a little bit. They've run out of things to do and they have new writers and it's not as good, and you know it's not as good. A lot of times viewers will keep watching even knowing that, because by now those characters are their friends. They want to just go hang out with the characters, okay? And so that is the power of creating these characters that people really connect with. So there are all kinds of character worksheets out there. Many of them are very detailed. People develop them for screenwriting as well. What we're going to do in the next few minutes is going to be very, very simple. And we can pull up all of the questions on this slide for this. And very, very simple. And the one thing I want to talk about here is the last one, a negative adjective to describe personality. Now, this doesn't have to be something really bad, okay? It can be something that's just holding them back, all right? It could be something like somebody who's lacking in confidence, right? Somebody who is disorganized, just something like that, something to hold them back. It's very important for a character to have some kind of flaw. Otherwise, they are insufferable and we don't really relate to them. And we don't really care about them. So that's what they're into. I'm going to say another thing about this slide, but first, I'm going to go ahead and have you guys get started. So I'm going to give you a time limit on each of these exercises. And for this first one, you're going to take 4 minutes. I think Martin already said this. I'm not calling on anybody to share their work. If you want to drop something about what you're writing in the chat, that's fine. But this is really just for you. And the reason for that is if you think you're going to be called on, sometimes it makes you freeze up creatively. Sometimes it makes you do really safe things creatively. You don't want to do anything too weird in case I call on you. So you can do, like, please play around with wild ideas as we go through this workshop. And if you get stuck, I won't know anyway. All right. This is just for you. So let's get those questions back and let's do those. Do this for your first character. All right, whichever one you want to start with. And we'll do 4 minutes and we'll start right now.
Cool. So while everyone's sort of getting along with that, is there a very specific reason why there's 2 likes and 1 dislike and 2 positives and 1 negative? Is that sort of almost like a perfect balance of giving them dimension without making them too cranky or too unlikable?
It's really just a way to start thinking about who they are and what they're into. And I'm going to talk about the likes and dislike in a little bit here. So there are a lot of character worksheets out there, and this one is a very pared down version of it. But it's just starting to think about that character. Yeah. All right, 30 more seconds, you guys. All right. So there's an interesting discussion in the chat about what about characters who have political opposition, political disagreement. This is a really interesting topic. I'm going to talk about this a little bit. I'm just putting a pin in it to remember to talk about it in a couple of minutes. When we're talking about the likes and dislikes for a character, something that readers find really fun or viewers find really fun if you're a script writer is knowing this about a character early on. And so when there's a callback to something that they like, or if something that we know that they don't like or is their pet peeve shows up in the story, we know how they're going to react even before they react. This is really fun because then it makes the reader feel like they know that character again, like that character is their friend. So that's something really fun to do. And I am going to, as we get into doing this for the second character, I'm going to get in and see, look at the comments, see what else you guys are thinking about this. Most romances have two main characters. If you're writing something like a polyromance or a why choose, as that is sometimes called, of course you might have more. We're just going to go with two characters for this. All right. So let's go ahead and do the same thing with the character that you didn't do yet, and you were probably already thinking about them a little bit. Let's go ahead and do 4 minutes for that too.
Sorry, that's just me typing away.
That's good.
I'm doing this in the background as well. Someone's asked me to mute my typing. You can also turn down the volume on your computer. However, if there's an overwhelming dislike of it, I'll stop. I think we just sometimes have people going on imagining that this is has frozen or something.
Someone said, I like the sound of typing. I do too. Yeah. All right, 30 more seconds, you guys. All right. Um, So I hope that that was fun for discovering some different things about your character. I'm going to address a couple of questions in the comments because I think they're really good. That and both of them lead, no, two of them lead to the next thing we're going to do. But first of all, someone asked, is it okay if they dislike cats? And I think the question here really is that going to make my character unlikable? And the consensus in the chat was like, no, I think that's funny. I think it's fine to dislike cats. And it does raise this issue about character likability, right? If you're writing a suspense novel, a thriller, you don't have to have likable characters. One of my favorite books of all time is Gone Girl, and they are not likable characters at all. You know, with romance, depending on the subgenre, there can be more of an expectation of a likable character, and particularly a higher expectation for if you're writing a male female romance for the heroine to be a likable character, which isn't to say that you can't subvert expectations. I'm not telling you what to do, I'm telling you what's out there. So if you're writing a darker romance, a darker romantasy, then sometimes you'll have more of an anti hero character, though. So but yeah, I think in most subgenres, disliking cats is fine. Someone asked, is it too cliche to have their negative traits be kind of opposites? Okay. Um, Absolutely not. This is one of the underlying structures of the opposites attract trope. One of them goes too far this one way, one of them goes too far this way. And as they fall in love, they start to move towards a more healthy middle. Okay. So I think that that's great. Someone asked, what if my character just doesn't like people? They do need to like one person, right? If you're going to have a romance. All right. It's something to think through, but we have to understand too why does that other person like them? Okay. And let's see what else. Someone else in here is writing lesbian romance, sapphic romance, um, and yeah, everything. What if you have a high profile lesbian couple? Fantastic. A few people here are writing sapphic romance. Wonderful. But I thought those were good questions, and I'm going to go back to that as we go into these 4 questions that I would always look for when I was acquiring romance manuscripts, and that I always ask myself when I'm writing a romance. And these are going to seem very simple, and they are. As writers, that simple and easy are not the same thing. All right. Let me talk about this first one. What makes these two characters perfect for each other? Now, notice that I'm not saying why are they okay for each other. To back up, my background was, as I said, was literary, and when I didn't read romance, I assumed that it was all about pretty people falling in love, and I was kind of an awkward person, you know, still am, and I thought, I don't care about a story about the homecoming queen and the homecoming king, or the homecoming queens, falling in love, like good for them, but I just thought it was this superficial thing where pretty people fell in love. And and then I started reading romance and realized how much more there was to it than that. But no matter what heat level you are writing at, and I have worked a lot on G-rated romance. My own book is really, the newest one is quite spicy. No matter what heat level you're at, you need something besides physical attraction. I think it's best to have something besides physical attraction pulling these two characters together. And this is all about stakes, right? So if they each think the other one is hot, great, but there's plenty of hot people out there. right? So the stakes aren't that high for these two people to get together. But if you can figure out ways to make the reader believe that they are perfect for each other, they are soulmates, it is going to suck if they aren't together. Their lives will not be nearly as good if these two don't get together. If you can convince readers of that, they're going to be more invested in the story. They're going to keep on turning pages because you've raised the stakes. So you're going to think about, why is this person perfect for the other person? Not just they're cute and now they live next door and now they're next door to each other. Okay. Why on a personal level? When I was writing Her Night at the Museum, one reason that she is perfect for my medieval night in present day Chicago is that she is an art conservator. She is a specialist in medieval art, which means that she knows a lot about the medieval history and about that culture. And so, as he's acclimating to modern day Chicago, she is kind of the perfect person to talk him through that, okay, to sort of understand where he's coming from and translate the modern world to him in a way a lot of people wouldn't be able to do. And so it just makes her a better fit for him. Of course, she's also the perfect person for him because she's the one who um, broke the curse that turned him into a stone statue. But you're looking at reasons why they're exactly perfect for one another. All right. So I am going to give you, again, 4 minutes on that one. Go ahead and write about what you think makes these guys soulmates. All right, I'll go ahead and say, as you're writing, somebody asked about an example of stakes. And what I'm saying is that if we are convinced that these two people belong together, that it's really important for them to be together, that already raises the stakes of the romance itself. Whereas if it's just like, yeah, they would be nice together, then that's low stakes. I mean, we're not as invested because we think they could probably meet another cute person. They could probably meet another handsome guy. I hope that helps. I'm seeing a lot of examples from people's stories about what they're seeing as what makes their characters perfect for one another, which is great. All right, 30 more seconds. And if you can answer this, then when you write your query or synopsis, or you write your back cover copy, your product description, and when people are reading the book, it won't feel like they're getting together just because they're supposed to get together because it's a romance, right? It'll feel much more organic. We'll understand what's going on there. All right, we'll stop there. I've seen some really nice answers in the chat too. So this is the first thing you want to be clear about. And once you know why they are perfect for each other, it makes it easier to plot the romantic scenes where you see them falling in love because you know why they are. Okay, much easier. All right, so the second question, kind of the opposite of that. Someone said here that romance is more of a subplot. This is great for a romance subplot too. The same thing that, you might not get as deep into the character arcs and into that plot, but it's still good to know. Because that's what keeps a romantic subplot organic to the story instead of feeling like, well, I heard I should have a romance. Instead, it really feels like it belongs there. All right. So the second question, what is the obstacle on both sides to the romance itself? Now, I bet all of you know that if you're writing a story, you need to have conflict. What happens a lot in romance is that we think about a conflict to the character's goals. So they are planning a pumpkin festival together, and there's a pumpkin shortage. I don't know, that's not a very good one. It's a romantasy, and they're overthrowing the evil king, and we're thinking about the conflict to their goals. And that's fine. Hopefully, there are conflicts to their goals. But sometimes what's lacking is the conflict to the romance itself. What is keeping person one from dating and falling in love with and committing to person two, and vice versa? All right. Sometimes that is weak. And without that, it is not going to be that gripping of a story. They're just going to kind of lope along and have their first kiss and then have their first date. And then when you get close to the end and you feel like, oh, I'm supposed to have some kind of conflict here, you don't even know what to do, right? So, what is that obstacle? All right. Now, I will say specifically in male female romance, I have read many male female romances where there wasn't really a conflict on the guy's side. Like he was just kind of all in and crazy about her the whole time, and he helps her learn that she doesn't have to be a workaholic, or she can believe in herself and feel beautiful. And so basically he's a manic pixie dream boy. All right. And even when I was writing Her Night at the Museum with my medieval knight in modern day Chicago, he was falling a little bit into that manic pixie dream boy kind of thing. And so I had to step back and say, he needs at least a little bit of a conflict, a little bit of a problem that keeps him from just pursuing this relationship, just saying, marry me, etc. All right. And I've enjoyed books like that didn't have when I'm reading male female, and that didn't have the conflict on the guy's side. But I do think it's stronger. In my past life, working for an entertainment network, I pitched to TV producers, and a couple of times I had the male exec in there say, "I don't understand his arc. I don't understand his deal," and then the pitch died, right? Because I didn't make that case. And it's just a little bit stronger if there's a conflict on both sides. It doesn't have to be as strong on both sides. Okay. Just like a lot of times it's gonna be more one person's story than the other, and that's okay. But you want to have them both in there. All right. So I am gonna go ahead and give you 4 minutes again to think about what are the obstacles on both sides to the romance itself. And as you're writing, I'll give a few examples of this. If it's like a widowed cowboy and he doesn't believe that true love can happen twice in a lifetime, okay? That is a conflict to the romance. Sometimes you'll have an external conflict, like we're only in Lisbon for the summer, so we can't be serious about each other. because we're going back to our own separate countries, or an external, like a Romeo and Juliet thing, our families hate each other. Even if you have an external conflict, think about the internal conflict too, right? Like we're only in Lisbon for the summer, but the internal conflict is I can't believe that a long distance thing can work. I can't uproot my life. I can't take on that much change. That's how it becomes an internal conflict. Hope that makes sense. Oh, and if you want ideas, my thing is I like to make lists for writers. So you can go on my blog. If you Google Bryn Donovan and romance plots, you will find a list of 50 romance plot ideas that are all basically romantic conflicts, if you want to check it out. I love making lists because, first of all, a lot of times one idea you can take it a million different ways. And then also you read a list and you start thinking of new things too. All right, 30 more seconds. All right. So hopefully, again, you can see that once you're clear on the conflict to both sides, then instead of when you're writing your book, instead of saying, what happens next? You understand, I'm bringing out why they're perfect for each other. I'm bringing out why it's not going to be easy. And that starts to inform your plot. Now, somebody asked, does a romance novel have to have a happy ending? And someone else answered correctly, yes, it does. Let me talk about this for a minute. So a love story does not have to have a happy ending. And there are wonderful literary love stories out there, upmarket book club type books that are love stories, and but if you package something as a romance, it's basically like packaging a food item. Like you have to um, label it correctly. And if you don't, people will get mad. If you label something as romance, you are telling people two things. First of all, that the love story will be the central story in the plot. Okay. It'll be what most of the book is about, and that it will have a happy ending. So there's nothing wrong, for instance, with like a kale salad. But if I order an ice cream sundae and I get a kale salad, I'm not going to be happy. All right. So, of course, you could label something with a sad ending romance if you enjoy one-star reviews on Amazon. I do not recommend it. You will get shellacked, shellacked. Okay. That is not to say that one is like a bittersweet or sad love story is worse than a romance with a happy ending. That is a matter of taste, and it's a matter of what you're in the mood for at in the moment as a reader. Okay. So, but if you label something as romance, and of course, the word romance has a whole other history, okay? But if you label something as romance in contemporary publishing, then it's saying a very specific thing about the ending.
When
Yeah.
I was speaking to an editor, it must have been years ago now, they were talking about the difference between happy ever after and happy for now,
Oh,
being a
yes.
distinction
Yeah.
you can make.
Absolutely. So, for with a happy ending, most romances have a happy ever after, which means they are making a commitment. We believe they're going to be there together for the rest of their lives. Happy for now means that, and this will happen a lot of time. Thank you for the birthday wishes, by the way. So, happy for now will happen a lot with a shorter book or a book that has sometimes a little bit straddling women's fiction, kind of more of a chick lit vibe, or if it's a shorter time frame, okay, you know, it's over a week, then you may see that they're like they kiss at the end. They're like, this could be really good, and you feel like their love story goes on in the future and that happy ever after is imminent even though it's not there yet. Sometimes just the time frame, it would be ridiculous if they, got engaged because it's only been 2 weeks. I shouldn't say that. I got engaged after 3 weeks. I shouldn't even say that. So, I've been married 32 years. So there was also discussion about whether the great love stories were sad or happy. And you can probably tell where I fall on that, but it's all subjective. But yes, so in a romance, happy ever after means the two characters are together and either committed or we feel like they're probably going to be committed. All right? Yeah. Great question. And someone asked, does romantic suspense have to have happy ever after? Yes, it does. If it doesn't, then it is a suspense novel with romantic elements. Okay. Um, and someone asked, can you talk a bit about romance as a subplot, not the plot, and how it can enhance or support the main plot? I will. I will talk about. I want to get back to that one. I'm going to get back to that one later on because I think that's a good question. Um, but first, I'm going to go into question number 3. All right. So why are they going to spend enough time together to fall in love? Which, kind of relates to what I was just saying about um, getting my husband to propose to me after 3 weeks of dating. So here's what has to happen in your book. By the time someone says, I love you, we have to not be surprised. We have to, as readers, not think, really? And I'm sure you have seen movies or read books where they say that, and you're like, do you though? Do you even know each other? All right. So they've got to spend enough time on the page together. And something I've seen in a lot of manuscripts is, well, there's a couple of things. Either they're just not, they've talked to each other twice, and then they just keep thinking about each other. And he's telling his brother, and she's telling her roommate, or whatever. But they're not actually spending time together, and they're in their own separate spheres, and that can make for really awkward plotting too. And then the other thing I've seen in manuscripts is where it's like, gosh, we just keep running into each other. I don't know why, and it can feel very forced after the, fourth or fifth happen to run into each other. Okay. And so if you watch Hallmark movies and you wonder, why are they always planning something together? Like they're planning the Christmas parade. They're planning a cruise trip together. Like, why do they keep doing that? It's because it sticks them together. All right. Yes. Forced proximity is almost more than a trope for romance. It's something that almost has to happen. And that's why you'll see, like, enemies to lovers where they're both coworkers who hate each other, because they have to deal with each other every day. In my book, Her Night at the Museum, he was a stone statue. He turns to life. He does not have anywhere to live. And so she has a new roommate right away. So that was easy in terms of getting them on the page together. So you need to have some reason for that. You don't have to do it now, obviously, but if you ever want to Google Bryn Donovan and forced proximity, I wrote for Writer's Digest, again, because I like to do lists, 50 reasons why your characters can be stuck together. All right. Now, as a romance editor, and I've been doing this for years now, I would say on at least half of the manuscripts that I edit, I say, I really think you need one more scene where we just see them together. We see them vibing. We see them learning more about each other. We see that connection deepening. I say that at least half of the manuscripts. And I just got edits back for my sequel to this book. And my editor I got on Zoom with my editor. And my editor started to say this. And I'm like, I know. I need to do that also. The reason why it's so easy to sort of cut that short is because we get involved in the weeds of our story. And, we'll be like, I'm writing this story about pirates and I did all this research on pirates and I know how to fix sails and I know about, how this thing works. And they have this mission and you get all into that and you can lose sight of making sure you establish that relationship with the character. Again, if it's marketed as a romance novel, that has to be the core story. All right. So this is going to be, you might already know, but if you don't, then you have a lot of thinking to do. Um, uh, so someone can I'll see if I can find that one I was talking about and drop it in the link, the romance plots. But I'm going to give you 4 minutes to think about why are these guys going to be on the page together enough to fall in love? All right. Yeah. Let me see if I can find that. I'm going to find some links for y'all.
This is just like a bit of housekeeping for Reedsy stuff. I wouldn't maybe share your URL on here. It may
Oh,
potentially be a bit against Reedsy's terms of use, and I
I'm
may get in trouble for
sorry.
that.
Never
However,
mind.
we cannot
Just
stop
look at it. You
anyone.
can
We
just
cannot
look
stop
at
anyone
it.
from googling things.
Just go to my blog. You can find it. It's got a search bar. I'm sorry. I was just trying to be helpful. I understand. Yeah. Thanks, Martin. I'm sorry. That totally makes sense. Especially with romance authors, you don't know what they're going to put up, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
I've been on here also before where people have been sharing their physical addresses on the
Oh,
chat,
no.
and we've.
Oh my gosh. I tend to be an open book. I can't say I'm surprised. All right. Again, the question is, why are they going to spend enough time together on the page to fall in love? All right, 30 more seconds. I saw a comment in the chat that's saying, maybe romance isn't my thing. Totally fair. The next question is going to be universal for any fiction, so stick with me. Yeah. Someone said most of my main characters end up dead anyway. Not always a reason why they can't fall in love. I'm just going to say paranormal romance is a thing, but anyway. All right, let's stop there. And we're going to get to our last question. Yeah. So as I was saying, this last one is universal for any fiction, and I think it'll appear on the screen in just a minute. There it is.
There we go. Sorry.
Yeah. And so how does each character change or learn or grow so they can get to their happy ever after? They have this obstacle. To get over it, something's got to change. All right. And this is the fun of fiction, of any genre of fiction. The fact that the character we see at the end of the story is not the same character that we met on page 1. And seeing that journey, that character journey, does a couple of things. First of all, in any story, I think it makes us feel like there was a point to the story, like it was worth it. And I think also as readers, for positive character arcs where they're learning better, they're growing, um, we also as people want to become our best selves. We want to become our truer, more authentic selves. And so we like seeing that reflected in fiction also. All right. Now, I was saying, I had this experience, in my past life of pitching to TV producers. And the first couple of ones I did, because nobody taught me how to do it, crashed and burned, you guys. And then, and it was again, someone saying, I don't understand their arc. I didn't understand their character arc. So how I learned how to pitch, and when I work with people on query letters, I do this too. I do a log line, and then I say, here's character 1 and their character arc. Here's character 2 and their character arc. All right. Actually, if it's a query letter, I put the comps in before that. But when I would pitch to producers, that's what I did. Log line, character 1 and arc, character 2 and arc. That's how I figured out to pitch to them. And then I started doing really well in the pitch meetings. Okay. So knowing that, because once you know that character arc, then you know so much about the story. All right. So for both, and as I say, a lot of times it's one character's story more than the other. One of them may grow a lot more than the other, but you want to see a little bit, I think, on both sides. All right. So let's go ahead. And again, 4 minutes. This is the last one that you're going to be doing writing on your own, to talk about how they're going to learn or change or grow. And again, on my website, if you want to later go there and put in a search for character arcs, you'll find a big long list of examples again there. All right, and just to be mindful of time, I'm going to talk a little bit while you guys are writing, just to say, once you know what the character arc is, it can inspire your scenes and give structure to the book, because you can think, for instance, let's say I have a character who needs to learn to be more confident, since I threw that out earlier. You can think, what is the baby step to show that she is starting to become more confident? And maybe it's something like she speaks up in a meeting or in class for the first time. Maybe she always wears gray to hide in the fade into the woodwork, and she buys a red sweater, like just the smallest little thing to start showing that she's changing. She's starting to grow a little bit more in confidence, and then these things will shape your plot. And that's the important thing too, because when you want to show character growth, you don't want it to happen all at once on page 350. You want to see little hints of it. Yeah. All right, like 20 more seconds. All right. Great examples in here. So, as I say, if you can answer these 4 questions that seem so simple and are not always simple to do, then you're gonna have a pretty solid plot, you know? And I think you can see how scenes grow from these. Now, before I get to my last thing, talking about brainstorming iconic scenes, I wanna talk about a couple of questions that I saw in the chat, and one of them was, is it okay if a character holds off on saying I love you? One of them says I love you, the other one doesn't say it back. It's great. It's so deliciously painful. It hurts for us to see this happen. It creates tension, and it can be a very real thing. You know, if one of them says I love you and the other one is like, well, thank you. It is just painful. So yeah, I think it's good. Now, if it goes on too long, then your reader is going to get antsy and start feeling like the other person's almost mean for not loving them, you know. But I think a little bit of that asic, what word am I trying to say? I'll say a different word. With one person saying it first and the other one a little bit later, they're not there yet. One of the tropes we talk about is he falls first, she falls harder, or vice versa. Or, you know, it can be two guys. He falls first, but the other one falls harder. So yeah, I think that can be really good. Someone asked to talk a little bit about how a romance subplot functions in a different genre. It can do a lot of different things. So sometimes the romance subplot is the means for character growth as they pursue their goal. All right. Sometimes it can be a through line in the series. You see this a lot in cozy mystery. Cozy mystery almost always has a slow burn, very, very slow burn romance going through like their 8 or 12 books, right? And it just kind of creates this nice continuity and this overarching story, all right, is they're solving these individual mysteries. Romance subplot can also establish the stakes. If it's a war story, they're going to battle, stakes are already quite high. And then if also they're leaving someone they love behind, stakes just got even higher. Okay, so there are a lot of different ways that romance subplot can work to support the main plot. I think somebody asked about writing love scenes without being too pornographic. I will touch on this right now, and I have written G-rated romance before. As I said, her night at the museum is quite spicy, and I'm probably more comfortable writing spicy, but I read and write all across the spectrum. So, if you are writing a love scene, a romantic scene, um, I think one of the important things is a couple of important things. You don't want to suddenly lose their internal monologue. So you're in someone's point of view. You have access to their thoughts and their feelings. A lot of times, when people get to the sex scene, they get so caught up in like exactly what they're doing and trying to use the right word and that kind of thing, that they'll lose the thoughts and the feelings of the character. Got to keep that all the way through, keep it rooted in their point of view, you know, as it goes on. Otherwise, it's going to become more mechanical. It's going to become what makes something feel pornographic is when it's doesn't have that emotional depth. All right. So as long as so it's not exactly just what they're doing, right? But it's also having that emotional depth that keeps it from being pornographic. Beyond that, make sure to not only focus on the visual, that also makes it more pornographic, right? Instead, think about, of course, sensations, but sounds. Go ahead and have them say words to each other if that is in their character. And even, talking about tastes and smells, make it multisensory. That will also make it feel less like pornography, which you mainly just, watch. And I guess you can hear. So those are some ways to make that a rich scene. Yeah, I hope that helps. What else? Was I going to say something else about that? I think that's it. All right. Okay, so let's talk about brainstorming some iconic scenes. This is more like homework for you guys. You have worked really hard in this past hour doing a lot of writing. And as I said, these 4 questions lead to figuring out what scenes you're going to write. And so, but some key scenes you want to think about. I'm sure as writers you have heard of the inciting incident, the moment that kicks the story into the motion. A friend of mine who does improv comedy calls it the day that everything changes, right? You don't want to have that too far from the beginning of the story. In a lot of stories, this is the meet cute. Or sometimes it's not cute. Sometimes it's the meet traumatic, depending on what kind of romance you're writing. Okay. Sometimes the inciting incident is when they both meet. If it is, for instance, an enemies to lovers, a friends to lovers, when they already know each other, then it has to be a scene in which the terms of that relationship have changed. Like they're 2 guys who are rivals at the ad agency, and the inciting incident is now they're supposed to work together on the same ad campaign, right? Even though they're both up for the same promotion and they don't really want to collaborate. All right. So if they already know each other, it's where the terms of that relationship gets changed. There's a catalyst. There's something that flips it a little bit. All right. They're friends, but they had a marriage pact a long while back. If we turn 40 and we're not married, we'll marry each other. And it's her 40th birthday. And she's wondering if he remembers them saying that, right? Yeah. Okay. So you're brainstorming that scene. And you know that you're brainstorming the most horrible scene in the book that happens close to the end, where you feel like everything might just fall apart. And you know it isn't, because again, romance guaranteed you the happy ending, but you still feel that way and you feel stressed. What is that terrible scene? A lot of times we talk about the third act breakup. It doesn't always have to be a breakup, it just has to be bad. So you brainstorm that. And one thing I want to tell you is a lot of us who write romance are tenderhearted, and so it pains us to put our characters through that. I remember seeing a mug for writers once that said, good writing is about a lot of things, but being kind to your characters is none of them. And that's true. And so for this painful scene, a lot of times you want to back up. I've edited more than one manuscript where the third act breakup happened off page. Like we saw her come over and cry to her sister and say, "Oh my God, we broke up." And I didn't even see the fight. You got to go all in, go all into those painful feelings. It might be really a really bad scene or a softer scene based on the kind of romance you're writing, but you can't pull your punches completely there. All right. Um, Here's the other one I want to talk about. Brainstorm your iconic big romance scene. Let's think about iconic scenes in movies. So in action movies, it might be like, I don't know which Marvel movie this was actually, Captain America, where he has the fight with people in the elevator. Great action scene, right? In romance, if you think about iconic scenes in romance movies, it might be like Jack and Rose on the whatever it is, the end of the Titanic, right? Jack, I'm flying. It might be the kiss in the Notebook in the rain. Think about those big scenes, and then you think, do I have one of those in my romance novel? Do I have one of those, that people want to reread again because, oh my God, it was just incredibly swoon worthy, right? Um, and so that is the other scene to brainstorm. And let me tell you a secret. So, when we talk about setting in fiction, we always talk about it like it's broccoli on a plate. We're like, oh, yeah, and you have to establish your setting and blah, blah, blah. Who cares? Right. If the examples I was using of iconic scenes, Jack and Rose on the end of the Titanic, Jack, I'm flying, the kiss in the rain in the Notebook, the elevator fight with Captain America and a score of rivals. What do these have in common? The setting is very important. That kiss is nothing if it's in a living room. All right. So, setting is a secret sauce for creating a really iconic romantic scene. Think about it. You're writing a beach scene, don't have a big scene in the living room. Get them out on the shore. Okay. Yeah. So think about setting when you're brainstorming those iconic romance scenes. We are past. Someone said, "Does the big scene need to be at the midpoint? Can it be anywhere?" Midpoint is a great place. It's a great place is right before all hell breaks loose. So then we really know that what we've lost. Yeah, yeah, that's the one. Before Winter Soldier. Before we get started, does anyone want to get out? We are past the hour. I will go ahead and stop there. I hope this has been good for folks. I really enjoyed the comments and the questions. Yeah, if you have more, I can do it. I can be here, but yeah, I didn't know if we
Yeah,
had
it's
a.
been yeah, it's been great. Like if you want to, if you want to stick around for a few more, I'm pretty sure we
Yeah,
could do that. In the meantime, if anyone would like to give this live a thumbs up, really appreciate sort of getting this out to more people. And of course, Bryn is an editor right here on Reedsy. If you want to work with her on your next book, then make sure you head down to the description below and click on her profile there. Tanya says,
absolutely.
"Thanks, Bryn. You're wonderful. Rock on and thank you." Rachel says,
Yeah.
"Thank you, thank
Must-
you." So it feels like, yeah, maybe we are sort of wrapping up there. There's one
Yeah, I
question
answered a lot of questions going through, so
from way
yeah.
back. Uncompetitive asks what a log line is.
Oh, logline. A logline is so powerful. If you were going to write a query letter, you're going to pitch to an agent in person, and it is a 1 or 2 sentence description of what your story is. It is tough to write because you know about all the complexities of your story. If you look at books, back covers, a lot of times the back cover description will start with a log line. Okay, mine does here. Um, and again, I have lists for everything. If you want to go to my blog and put in log, I have a list of 100 log lines, 50 from movies, 50 from books. So, yeah. And when I collaborate with people in query letters, I don't start with, "I'm pitching to you because I heard you liked strong female characters." I start with the log line. Okay. Um, yeah. So it's a really powerful thing if you're learning how to pitch your book, which is sort of a whole different skill than writing it. Yeah.
Cool, amazing.
All right.
All right. Well, really thank you for joining us today, Bryn. This has been absolutely fantastic. Everyone, do head over to her profile on Reedsy. And yeah, we're going to have a few more live webinars coming up in the next few weeks. So I'll be sharing more details. If you're not already, head over to blog.reedsy.com and sign up for our newsletter. You'll be the first to know. And of course, make sure you hit subscribe to this channel and hit the bell to follow. And you'll be the first to know whenever we have anything new live. Amazing.
All
Well,
right.
thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Bryn.
Thank you, guys. Good
Yeah.
luck on your stories. Yeah.
All right. See you, everyone.
Right.
Bye.